Damn! That was one of the best songs I've ever found. At the very last minute when I was finishing up this book. So, welcome to the epilogue of Return of the Dragon King. Last time, we just went through the finale, and the champions were barely able to put a stop to Onaga. You know, Hanzo, Havoc, Liu Kang, Kung Lao, and Ermac. They were all in the Nexus fighting off Onaga, and they realized they had to break the Kamidogu in order to weaken the Dragon King so that they can have the upper hand, because they functioned united as Onaga's power source, even though there wasn't Shinnok's amulet yet. And Onaga was unable to get there, and his army was thwarted by the Edenian resistance in Outworld, led by the Chameleons, and Baraka, the time-displaced Baraka, had the upper hand, finishing off his doppelganger with his new gifted fiery breath. Ha! Baraka wasn't expecting it at all. So, without further delay, let's end this with the epilogue. Alright, so here we are. Outside Raiden's ethereal temple, the monks muttered in numerous tongues of the dangers for each of the injured heroes involved in Onaga's war, but more importantly, the fates of their champions and their best representatives, Liu Kang and Kung Lao. They even remained silent as more combatants marched onto the summit via portals, one from the Temple of Elements, the other from Outworld. Those being Aiko, Li Mei, Sindel, Katana, Jade, Frost, Smoke, Goro, the Chameleon, Serena, and the Edenian Royal Guard. Everyone stood outside the sacred Jinsei fountain, anxious on what would become of their injured comrades. Hanzo and Kenshi made a handshake and manly embrace as they finally reunited from their battle against the Deadly Alliance. So they're finally reunited. So far, most of the wounded had recovered in a matter of minutes. Thankfully, Sonya, Jax, and Johnny had their bodies and minds lucid, no longer possessing the urge to conquer and seize control for the dreaded Dragon King. Reptile was still immobilized from the extensive damage of the lethal scrimmage, although the troops recuperated quickly, as if they only suffered minor damage like a bruise or a scrape. The crowd began to thin out little by little, but several minutes had passed before the Saurian general made some hisses, probably from contempt. The Raptors gladly offered to carry their elitists to a portal in Zatera, where he'd settle in a more familiar instead of holy territory. I don't blame him. As soon as the scaly reptilians left the building, the two brother gods looked at each other with anxiety. They knew what they had to do. Are you ready? Yes, brother. But this hasn't been done in a millennia. Raiden looked down at his fallen champion. The process won't be easy. This was a voluntary possession, but Liu Kang's body sustained extensive damage by the Deadly Alliance and the Hoenn ritual. It's likely it is still corrupt by the ancient black arts, in which I had possessed to revive him for evil purposes. He sulked at the thought. Technically, it wasn't his fault. It was his doppelganger. So, Fujin just laid a firm hand, assuring, "Do not blame yourself on what your corrupt incarnate has done. We will decimate whatever remains of those savage necromancers. I'm certain Liu Kang and Kung Lao are still pure. It wasn't easy removing those spellbound chains, though." Everyone hardly noticed the Hoenn chains were gone. Way to go, guys. Suddenly, another rip opened outside as the protectors noticed a faded light. Did I miss it? Did I miss the ritual? Nightwolf! Ashra! Where's Sub-Zero and Baraka? He's healing the Turcotin, Raiden. His dragon medallion should be vital in preventing infections and blood loss. Let's hope so, but I must have the shaman's assistance for the time being. Thank heavens you're no longer tainted. Well done leading him here, Ashra. How may I help, Raiden? Cleanse Liu Kang's body for any impurities, and escort his soul from Kung Lao. Liu Kang must pass through spiritual plane and return. May the elder gods assist us if there should be a spiritual conflict between his body and soul, as pointed out in the ending. You must know, Nightwolf, that this is a very dangerous procedure. The Matoken's body ignited as he let out Kiba, who made a large, rapid shake, as if soaked in torrential rainfall. And you never see this in Defenders of the Realm. You never see the opposite, you just see them merged. That's it. So I kind of made it up. He then trotted over to the two fallen Orientals and let out some whimpers. No. Nightwolf offered to pet him, bring the glowing tomahawk to the spectators outside to pray for the Shaolin's welfare. He obliged, and Raiden prayed to the higher-ups to protect them. The process began as Nightwolf was in a lotus position, and the Jinsei suddenly turned into a light green, while Fusion watched over the ritual warily as Raiden announced, "Fall to pawn!" The wind god hit a distant bass gong before his brother laid his fingers onto Lao's forehead, and soon Liu Kang's corpse in the same position. The temple began to darken, although it wasn't just the interior walls. Slowly closed his eyes as he performed the spiritual transition. Meanwhile, the group of spectators gathered around the small tomahawk Kiba brought. Everyone laid a hand on it as they silently prayed for Liu's safe journey and the warriors' sakes. As Raiden's head bowed, left flashes of lightning were seen. They startled Aiko a little, although knowing her phobia, Kenshi comforted her. The monks began to chant in their Shaolin mantras for their fellow brothers. Minutes dragged on as the process did. At times Raiden faced each of the two still victims, guiding and cleansing their spirits, as did Nightwolf and Fusion, when suddenly a surge of invisible energy went through Kung Lao as he made a deep inhale. It was as if a heavy load had been lifted from his body and mind. Raiden sensed the same as he motioned his fingers from his forehead. "Wake up, Kung Lao." There was a deep tenor ring in his mind, almost sounding as if belonging to his Shaolin partner. Once I'm done with Armageddon, I'll explain it all. Believe me, it isn't his ancestor, just letting you know. But I won't tell. Aiko's heart gem glowed and warmed for her own chest, filling her with relief. "It's Kung Lao!" The crowd murmured whether or not his presence was true. They each turned to the Sky Temple, and soon emerged the former monk from the shadows. The cardiokinetic was the first to stand and run to him, murmuring his name. Overjoyed, he couldn't help but grin as his eyes sparkled, before he tightly embraced her, resting his head onto her shoulder. Oh, it's so good to see you. I am myself again." Her nose twitched. "I don't care how much you sweat or how bad you smell. I'm just so glad you are here." He always seemed to have the bad habit on forgetting to apply deodorant after each tumultuous lesson or bout. I made up this bad habit. He then heard some excited barks coming from a dog, only it turned out to be Kiba, who rose on his hind legs and licked his face numerous times. Lao just smirked and giggled all the way, even having his forepaws rest on his shoulders, even his snout. The wolf soon recovered and gazed inside, letting out a few high-pitched moans. Lao soon followed. "Liu Kang!" The crowd soon closed in, welcoming him alive and well. Even Goro, iterating his ancestor, and so he had brought hope and peace throughout the realms. He was glad Li Mei was still safe, even from the Sundo devastation he heard from Fusion on his way out. Everyone was thrilled for Kung Lao's successful recuperation, though Katana, Aiko, and Lao still showed worry for Liu Kang as they gazed into the opaque entrance. Moments later, Fusion hit the same large gong again, and a gathering surrounded the central fountain, hardly letting the normal blue hue strike through. The sky began to lighten as Sonya contacted Kwai in Outworld. He was surprised the Special Forces agent was her normal self, as were Jax and Johnny, who reunited with him like old schoolmates. She offered to send him a portal home as soon as Baraka snarled that he'd rather rest at his own Tarkatan camp than in a stuffy, irritable space filled with bright light and godly air. Where Lao and Aiko and soon Katana stood, their eyes made out a group of monks walk out, never saying a word, just giving them loose complexions. Fujin broke through the shadows next. "Welcome back, Kung Lao." He bowed, and wore a strike of concern. "Lord Fujin, what of Liu Kang?" "The dragon amulet's been destroyed by the deep impacts of Onaga. He actually wants to thank you for everything. What I've done. It should never have come to pass. Of Liu Kang's death by the Deadly Alliance and the dragon's rebirth. I was irresponsible. You were only responsible for his destiny and yours." Kung Lao then noticed Raiden and Nightwolf. Aiko and Katana cried about Liu Kang's fate. All he did was raise a hand to silence them. "We all had done some irrevocable deeds to secure all the realms from Onaga's reign of terror, and to preserve the existence of our chosen one, Liu Kang." He rose his heavy head without suddenly becoming light. "And we never would have wanted it any other way. What we had done echoes for an eternity." There was a pause, and Raiden turned behind him. Gradually, a male emerged out from the temple before they saw an orange glow for the first time in what feels to be infinite. He rose his face as he let out a grin as his palms ignited, then dissipated the flames. Katana immediately went up and gave her lover a sudden tight embrace, in which he returned the pressure. The Edenian princess was nearly in tears as she expressed how much she missed him, and how she was certain that he ascended into the afterlife before Onaga made his resurrection. Aiko did the same as Liu's left side broke away, also giving her the same affection. As both women separated and remained at his sides, Kung Lao took off his hat and knelt as he bowed. "I am forever in your debt, champion. Whatever happened to surpass Onaga, I am honored for all the sacrifices and triumphs you have made. I felt my nerves blazing like fire, and I had a rush of air fill my lungs for the first time since my death. I am Liu Kang once more, protector of Earthrealm and champion of Mortal Kombat. And I owe the same privilege and name unto you, Kung Lao." Raiden then faced his distant friends and nodded for them to come forth. They slowly gathered around and praised of his safe and triumphant return, even for his and Lao's victory. With every greeting they made toward their saviors, Liu Kang never broke his handhold with his Shaolin partner. Together they were now given the highest honor that would even match Raiden and Fujin, even the Elder Gods themselves. Their unbreakable, honorable bond shall never fade through the eons. Raiden spoke loud to his most prominent disciples, while still being overcrowded by their friends. "You have secured your fates, and may the Elder Gods forever shine down upon you. Well done, champions of Mortal Kombat, and saviors to all the realms." Oh man, that was great! And there are the songs for that. The epilogue wasn't too hard to write. I wanted to get Return of the Dragon King completed as soon as possible to focus on other projects. Sorry if I should leave out any extra details, like those in Conquest mode, but it had been exhausting both mentally and physically with fatigue and disinterest. I'll try and resolve its convoluted timeline in my chronology. Like Melina and Lei Chen, like come on. Of course, I want to give quick shoutouts to those who gave me inspiration, MK Crypt, which I had a fallout with too, but he helped me a lot. There's Mortal Kombat Addict, MK Temple with its informative history, 616 Entertainment's history of Mortal Kombat Marathon, Tapmock, True Underdog, The Fourth Snake, even the role players I had such as Kung Jin, Johnny, Sindel, Gerard, Deity of Fire, Lord Raiden, even Anonymous Affection who provided with a Deception Conquest walkthrough. There were many triumphs and sacrifices in this epic, even from what I went through. Every event led up to a just cause, all leading up to Armageddon and the final combat. Oh man, that was a great ending. I'm finally finished with Book 5. Well, Book 4 if you don't count the one-shot, A Date and a Destiny before Shinnok's uprising. But yeah, I'm finally done with Return of the Dragon King. And I hope that soon I will complete Final Combat, hopefully in the summer, and I'll do a podfic of that too. So, until then, this is the Ekron Writer signing out, and I'll see you in the next epic. Ciao.